Entrepreneurship is doing something that's not been done before, bringing something new to the world. I think that's what entrepreneurship is. It could be in starting a new business and it could be in something else as well. It doesn't have to be business. It's about taking that risk and giving birth to something new. My family has always been service side, so government service actually. I've spent about a decade working at Tata Group. So I wanted to do a startup for a fairly long period of time. So this started, I think, about maybe 15 years back that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know how to go about doing it. Then I went to do an MBA from IIM Bangalore, and part of the reason was that at that time Bangalore was seen as this entrepreneurship hub, and this was the dot-com time. Of course, dot-com bust happened, and that's where I graduated. I realized that in terms of skills, I really wasn't there. So I took up a job, learned a few things there, and then when I wanted to start up again, my company at that time, my boss, Mr. Nandurai, was the CEO of TCS at that time. He offered me to become an entrepreneur in residence. So he put a challenge to me: can you create $100 million business in about 2 to 3 years? So I took that up and I became India's first entrepreneur in residence. So I took the unconventional route of doing a startup inside a company. And I did that. I also helped start a business at a Tata Group level, Tata CRM. So I've been starting up things there. I've been starting up things at IIM Bangalore, where I started a new event format called Vista, which still continues very successfully. I've had a hand in starting Head Start. So I've been starting up for quite a bit of time. So I think it's a gradual movement into this entire idea that okay, this is what I'm going to do. And see, the methods of entrepreneurship differ. So I have one method right now. I had other methods earlier, but that's what I've been doing for a long time. My family always knew that I wanted to become an entrepreneur. So, but when I wanted to quit and start up, there were of course questions that okay, why are you doing this? Are you sure about this? But I think my family has been very supportive of that. But I'm very lucky that my family has been pretty supportive of pretty much everything I've done. So if you look at my family background, my family would have expected me to go into civil services. I decided not to do that. I was the first person to have a non-science kind of a background. So I did engineering economics, and I went for an MBA. All these things were non-traditional from a family background, and they've always been very supportive. I don't think anything stopped me per se. Okay? It's always about looking at what are the options in front of you and taking action as per that. Also to see what is it that you're capable of in terms of your financial resources, in terms of your skill sets. So I did not start off right after IIM Bangalore. I would have looked it because I didn't have a great idea of what I wanted to do at that time. In terms of skill sets, while I had read a lot and studied a lot, I didn't see that okay, I actually have something. I had done my internship with a startup company in Singapore at that time, and I realized that the kind of stuff that the CEO of the company was doing was something that I didn't have. So therefore I said, okay, let me do something and learn. Second, that was also the time that there was a massive recession going on. And at that time, not to have any financial resources, and please remember at that time there were no funding in India, to actually go and start up just didn't seem like the right idea. The next time I did something, I ended up doing it within the Tata Group. And that was fundamentally because even at that time, the concept of angel investment did not exist. And it was only after that you had the likes of Mumbai Angels, Indian Angel Network, Natural Angel Investments happening. At that time, actually sitting on the Tata Group side, you'll be surprised at the high number of proposals that we used to get that, hey, you are the largest company around in technology, please fund us. And we didn't know what to do with that. So given those circumstances, I think I did the right thing. When those things didn't work out at that time, I could have again stepped out and done something, but I was fairly tired. I just needed some time off. So I said, okay, let me take it easy. That's what I did for a couple of years. And then when I felt that I had identified a problem that needs a solution and I can do that, and I can manage it without funding for a fairly long period of time, when all these conditions were right, I started. Now, if these conditions were right earlier, I would have started in a similar manner earlier. And I think a lot of people think that look, starting up is only when you're doing something on your own. But like I said earlier, you could start up with a large backing from a fairly large player. A lot of people have actually done that. In fact, if you look at a lot of older businesses, that's how they've done it. And this entire concept of VC-backed businesses is probably only 20 years old. Fairly fashionable, but hey, bulk of large businesses in the world have been created without VC. Okay, so SwitchMe helps you switch services. So the problem that a lot of people face is this, that while they know that it's possible to switch from service A to service B, they do not have the time or cannot make the effort to actually do that, right? We all have very busy lives. And that means that I'm not able to save money or I'm not able to move on to a better quality service. Now, what are these kind of services? So electricity is one with which we are already live. We are already testing and we already have alpha customers for mobile number portability. We already have those for home loan, and there are other products that will follow. So there are a whole suite of areas where people can switch from provider A to provider B and save a lot of money, get better service, and we just make it easy for them to do it. See, it's a personal experience. I had a very busy life. I was doing well in my career. I had a sales job just before I did this. I had already made my numbers, but once you make your numbers, people want you to do more, and you're enjoying yourself. So I pretty much didn't have any time from my day job. Outside of that, I've been running Head Start for a fairly long period of time now. And as a Head Starter, you sit down and help startups as much as you can. So that left me with probably just part of Sunday for myself, and that meant that while I knew that I can switch from Reliance Energy to Tata Power and I can save money, I just could never do it. And I think I realized that look, it's been about a year and a half since I thought I'd do this, but abhi tak nahi hua hai. Why? Anyway, let me spend some time understand this. So I went online to understand it, and I figured out even understanding it was difficult. That okay, am I going to save money? Is there a reliable estimate for that? Second, okay, actually how do I do it? Third, do I have to actually go to their office or can somebody come to my home and do that? Is it convenient? There were no answers for that. So I thought, okay, maybe I'm the only person who has this problem, but let me just ask her. So I asked around, and it turns out that a lot of people have similar problems, and not only for this one service, but for several services. And that's where I thought, well, let me solve this problem for a lot of people. And sounds like a business where people are willing to pay. So I'd asked around, people said, yes, we will pay for this. So that's where it started. Okay, very funnily, I expected formation of company and those aspects where you're dealing with the government to be difficult. It turns out that the most difficult part is actually to get a bank account open. And I went to HDFC Bank, with whom I banked for a very long period of time, and that took a very long time to do that. And in the end, today, because of that experience, I have accounts with Kotak and SBI as well. And it turns out that everybody can do it in 2 days, and HDFC takes almost 2 months. So there's something wrong with HDFC. So I think that was one problem. The other issue when it comes to actually doing business is that it's a new concept. A lot of people take time to understand and say, okay, yeah, this can be done. From a customer side, we don't face that much of a problem. Customers say, yes, I'm waiting for it. And so far, all our businesses come through word of mouth. People have gone and told other people. Or they have searched for us on Google and they found us. I've not been spending much of marketing money. In fact, right now I'm not spending anything, and we get a few customers every day. So that's not been a problem. The problem has been on the service provider side that, okay, who are you and why are you switching my customer? So that was kind of expected, but the manner in which it came was kind of unexpected. I can't say how long it has taken me to design the whole setup, because I think the design is still going on. We still haven't hit a formula that we will seamlessly just scale up. We are learning every day. So, but the basic stuff, 3 months. No, so the part it has come to us is that we thought that the incumbent, the provider with whom the customer is, he will resist, and the person to whom, or the service provider to whom that we are switching to, he will welcome with open arms. But it turns out both were surprised that there is a service like this, and the resistance is more from the guy to whom the people are switching to. So today the resistance that I see is more from Tata Power rather than from Reliance Energy. So that's kind of unexpected. See, you got to say, okay, who's the person who's criticizing, right? I mean, where is he coming from? I think that's the very first question to answer. If he's a customer, then he's got a stake into the entire thing. And then where is he coming from? Has my service been bad? Has my service been expensive? So I think one thing that happens for any startup is that a lot of people who come to you may say that, look, I don't like this, or I don't like your price or something. That's where you face a situation that, okay, should I change my service, pricing, the product to suit those customers? I think that's the very first criticism that comes your way, and that's something that you will take on forward. I think we have been lucky that less than 10% of the people who come to us, they tell us that, look, we have a problem with the way you're doing things. So far we have been happy to let go of that business and say that, okay, we'll live with that. But that's the first criticism that you have to take into account. If that number was higher than that, I would have had to change my business. And that's something that I've done in my past lives, that we take that feedback, pivot, change stuff. Second kind of criticism also comes from the other stakeholders in the system, which are the service providers. And you immediately take that into account because they are larger players and there is some lacunae in your system, you take care of it. And in some ways, they are again external parties, and that's something that you have to take care of. The third criticism that I'm very sensitive to is inside my own organization. So if there are my people who are not happy with certain things, then I have to take care of that. So I think that's the third criticism that we have to do, and you can ask my folks about that. Outside of that, anybody else criticizing some blog post which is from some journalist, newspaper, whatever, I don't care.
Actually, basically, I was appointed as in to handle accounts and finance, but after that, Aditya gave me a chance to, do this sales thing. So I just opted to learn. So I'm doing right now that also.
I'm a developer, and I mostly work on the front-end designs, So just designing stuff and going on the functionalities, Right now I'm working with mobile switching, whatever.
I'm a web developer at SwitchMe. We are currently working on our home loan products and mobile switching products.
I think a lot of the literature about entrepreneurship is influenced by the frameworks that have been developed in the US and other countries. And that's where when those people try to do things, then you'll find that there are a lot of Americans or Europeans trying to do business here. Or a lot of investors certainly are coming from there and they try and copy paste those things here. And then they struggle and then they say, oh, India is a vast place, and therefore you say that, look, this is how it is. I mean, to me it sounds like that you are not able to do a good job and therefore you are blaming your customer, right? For every one of these failures that you have, there are success stories of organizations coming from outside India and within India who have successfully done things. So you have examples of, let's say, on the consumer side, you do have HLM, you do have Nirma, you do have Marico, you have number of FMCG companies which have done well, right? On the enterprise side, again, there are thousands of examples, actually not thousands, but there are several examples that are there where people have built very large businesses. If you are staying just within Bombay, if you're looking at software products companies, iFlex is there. If you are looking at outside of that, there's a bank which started in 2004, and so within 8 years or 9 years of their founding, their profit exceeded 1,000 crores. I'm not talking about revenue. Profits exceeded 1,000 crores. That's Yes Bank. So I think it's all about the entrepreneur committing yourself to the market and saying, look, let me understand the customer. If you do not take the time to understand the customer and then you say that, look, market is difficult, that is something that is unacceptable for you, right? Having said that, there are areas that I would tell a startup entrepreneur to avoid. As an entrepreneur, you have limited resources, right? And you want to focus on one problem and solve that one problem, rather than trying to solve 10 different problems. So don't take on complex problems. Take on problems which are large. They're difficult problems. Okay, if you do not take on difficult problems, then somebody else will easily copy or somebody else is already doing it. Take on difficult problems, but take on problems which is a single problem. It doesn't break down into 100 different problems. So don't die death from 1,000 cuts. Just focus on one thing, and then I think you'll be able to do that. And Indian customer is far more demanding than the customer that you have elsewhere. And if you do well for them, I think you'll do well for anywhere else. And I think the last point I would make there is that look, there's a good parallel to be drawn again with respect to China. So if you were to look at the kind of commentary that used to go about China even a year ago, was that oh, they are intellectual thieves, they copy stuff and all that kind of stuff. And if you look at it, actually the largest market in the world for internet in terms of subscribers is actually China. It's not US, it's not Europe, it's China. And large companies like Google have stumbled there. Facebook has had its own struggles. And there are local guys who have done it better. And I think that commentary is now changing. And people are realizing that what the Chinese entrepreneurs do is something that you don't understand and you are happy to label it, oh, they are cheats. And I was reading this blog post some time back which put the point very nicely. It essentially said that look, Chinese entrepreneurs move faster than American entrepreneurs and the speed is so fast, and people say that look, things are happening at a blinding speed. When an American comes here, we tell them that look, we will teach you more about lean startup than you understand it. Right? The minute you say lean startup, yeah, the American is listening. Because oh yeah, this is a term that we call, and then you learn that okay, these guys are 2x of what we have already done. I think if you look at the really good Indian entrepreneurs, you'll find the same thing. And let's just forget the commentary that comes from other countries about this, and let's not apply those frameworks here and say okay, there's a problem with India. You can never ever do well if you say that was my customer will. Sorry, that's like saying you've shot yourself in the head and saying okay, let's move from it. Not gonna happen. If you look at 15 years back, there are not that many VCs. Okay? Among the prominent guys that you put, probably the only prominent guys who have survived from then to now is ICICI Ventures, and they do far more private equity today than proper VC deals that was happening there. Most of the VCs of that time, they didn't survive the bust. Today a whole bunch of new VCs are there, and you can divide them into different categories. One way of dividing them is in terms of fund sizes, other is in terms of what's the source of their capital. Is it Indian money or is it US money? That's an important distinction to make, because if you show returns in US, then the returns that you have to show again have to be significant in dollar terms, which means that they would prefer to make larger ticket size investment and look at large exits. Whereas in India, the amount of money that you need is very small. So there's a bit of discrepancy that is there. When it comes to VCs, there are super angels or micro VCs that have started. There are several of them here in Bombay. So Bloom, K, India Quotient, three of them who are here. Other cities don't have these micro VCs. Angel environment is fairly decent. I would not call it good, because while there are a number of people claiming to be angels, the number of angel deals that are happening are actually not so much. The number of angel deals that are there in angel networks is fairly small actually. Talk about 25 to 30 deals a year. Clearly not enough. Number of deals that are happening with angels outside the system, that's probably a multiple of that, maybe 5 times, 6 times of that. And I think that's fairly nice. And I have my hope from the second rather than the first, because the first one is acting more like the VC, which is not there. Second is a true angel, but they don't get recognized. A lot of accelerators starting. I think there's a lot of game capital. You don't know what's going to come out of it. It's just an idea and sounds interesting. Let's play with this and let's see. So a lot of accelerators are there, and more accelerators are there. Very clearly, some of these guys, and probably most of these guys, are not going to be around in 2 years' time. But I think that would have launched a few startups to a next level of trajectory. And I think in terms of funding, the summary remark I would have on that is that look, it's a lot better than what it was. Earlier, you used to struggle. So I look at one of the VCs, not name him, today. He used to be an entrepreneur in around 2006, 2007. In order to get his company funded, he had to move to Silicon Valley, get it funded there, then move his company there, and everything. That's what people were doing. People were leaving India. People were leaving India to go to UK, to Singapore, to even Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka was war torn at that time, but well, funding was even better there. So I've seen those cases, and at least today there are a lot of people who are getting funded here. It's a lot simpler, it takes lesser amount of time, money is available. I think that's already happening. In terms of the Indian government, Planning Commission has released a document saying we will pump in 10,000 crores to essentially make entrepreneurship happen. I think they fundamentally realize, and that's a comment that has been made by politicians and everybody also, that if you look at the last 20 years, the economic progress that India has seen, it has happened because of entrepreneurship. It has not happened because the government did something. First, there was an IT boom, which continues even today, one of the largest employers. Then you have the telecom boom, then you have the retail boom, and then real estate and everything. Now, all of that is happening because people are creating value. And that's happening because of entrepreneurs. So I think government realizes that and they want more of that because they don't know. They're totally short of ideas. Okay, how do I do this? And I think they are more concerned about redistribution of the money that they are getting as taxes, and let's do into direct payment into people who do not have money, and let's create infrastructure. I think that's the right approach to take. But what I would wish is all parts of the government were to think together. We have had haulers like startup tax coming at us, and that's still not very clear if it's gone or not, and maybe we'll have another year to figure it out. Then on the other hand, you talk about let's promote startups. So I think government is doing quite a bit. They need to probably market it a little more. Second, in terms of society, I think what's happened is that media has been covering that quite a bit. So the large publications have been talking about success stories of entrepreneurs. So I think that has allowed people to at least think in terms of, okay, that's an option. Are people very open, हाँ बेटा तू जाके entrepreneur ही बन instead of becoming an IAS, doctor, engineer? That's not happening, okay? And I don't expect it to happen either. I don't think there's any society in the world which says was entrepreneur first, anything else second. That's not going to happen, and I hope it does not happen because you need a lot of people to do non-entrepreneurial jobs as well. And when you've got hundreds of millions of people, not everybody can do entrepreneur. So I think the trend is towards kind of opening up things in terms of our attitude and also in terms of government. What I would hope is this, that the government puts in more money towards basic science and basic research. If you look at all the large ecosystems that are there, so you look at Boston, you look at Silicon Valley, you look at Israel, you look at Korea, or you look at, let's say, even Canada. I mean, let's take each one of them. Silicon Valley came around the US military complex that was there. That's the initial part. And Stanford had a lot of relationships with them, and that's where the grants came, and that's where semiconductor and everything took off. So that's where all our stuff happened. And some of the fundamental technologies that get used in semiconductor and all that are all spin-offs of what US ended up doing during the Second World War, right? You look at any of the examples, Germany, Japan, Korea, there is a lot of government backing saying that, okay, let's do something fundamentally new, right? There will be very few opportunities which are all about redistribution, which are all about communication. See, there are only few of Facebook's will happen, right? Which is saying that, hey, internet is happening, how do I find an efficient way of connecting it, right? And a lot of people thought of it, one of them won it, right? But not many of those will happen, right? It has to be doing absolutely new things, and therefore there has to be basic research, there has to be basic technology. And that investment, given the long-term nature of that, has to come from the government. So which means that our IITs, our research institutions need to do more research and try to be at the forefront of those research rather than saying, okay, somebody in US has done this, can I do a derivative work of that and get a paper published in a smaller journal? Not going to happen, not sustainable. And the opportunity here is this, that if you look at rural India, or if there are absolutely new problems that are not there in other parts of the world, which means that must use technology to solve that problem. If you look at urban India, the kind of density of population that we have, kind of traffic problems, kind of clean water problems, kind of sanitation problems that we have, nobody else has. And all of these are compounded by the kind of weather conditions that we are in. You look at basic problems like food, water, which are international, right? Now, whole lot of these will get solved only when you are saying that, hey, let's spend money on basic research for this. Great example is Green Revolution. It happened because government spent money, right? If they had not done that, we would probably starving now. So my point is this, that I think more than saying that, hey, let's create a government fund to fund startups, something that Israel and China have done and India is also going to do, what's more important is to fund that basic research.
We, like, whenever we do mistakes or whatever, so he never tell us कि I mean क्यों किया ऐसे, why this happened. So he always tell कि अरे होता है करके, मतलब it's okay first time. So he always encourage us and always motivate us. So and also he let us learn different many things. Even it's not a part of the job to do, but he'll tell us कि I mean learn this thing, it will be benefited to you only.
He always encourage us to do stuff, right? Sometimes we spend more time in learning also, which is not part of our development. Then also we are spending some time, and they also allow us to do some new stuffs rather than only developing the related stuff to what we have to publish.
It's always good. He likes to share his knowledge with us, giving us opportunities and to work pretty, like, it's free-minded. No restrictions and all. You can do, just use your ideas, show it to him, and this we can go on.
Well, always look for a unique problem to solve, a difficult problem to solve, and then try and see how best you can solve it. Stay just close to the customer. I think customer focus is the most important thing.